Welcome to Real Estate Secrets Unlocked, the podcast that takes you inside the minds of the industry's top professionals, revealing their top secrets to success. I'm your host, Danielle and Mary. Whether you're a seasoned pro or just starting out, get ready to learn the latest trends, strategies, and secrets that will help you succeed. Join us as we go beyond the basics and explore what it takes to make it in the world of real estate. So buckle up and get ready for a wild ride. This is Real Estate Secrets Unlocked. Hey everybody, it's Danielle Damiano with Real Estate Secrets Unlocked, and I am so excited today because I had Mary Schmid on here. She is with Mary Schmid Consulting and Speaking, and we are going to have a really fun conversation about conversations, conversations that build trust. And I'm really, excited to kind of dig into this because whenever you're in sales or any job for that matter, but especially like real estate or mortgage, communication is very, very, very important because we have to really listen to understand what the client's needs are and what they're trying to accomplish in order for us to really help them accomplish their goals. And it's funny because I sold real estate. I have both real estate and mortgage licenses, sold real estate for many years. I worked a lot with expired listings. So somebody that had their home on the market for a while with another agent wasn't able to get it sold. I got the listing and sold it. And their number one complaint across the board was communication. They felt like their last agent did not communicate with them and they were not heard or understood. So this is a great topic today to talk about. And I love that you bring in the neuroscience into it because that's really, really important as well for everybody to understand. So thank you for being here. Why don't you let everybody know a little bit about yourself and then we'll get right into it.
Well, thank you, Danielle. It's my pleasure to be here to share I'm hoping some helpful tidbits with your audience. And so, like many of us, for a long time, I was an executive in a healthcare organization, and I thought I was really good at conversations. I thought I listened to people, gave them good advice, told them what to do, and that was all true. But then I began to wonder, why is it that some people get it and are so easy to get along with and other people aren't? And so, like most people, I just sort of simply said, well, that's their problem. I don't know what's wrong with them, right? It's them. Well, then that wasn't a good enough answer for me. So I tried and I tried. And I went to my CEO and I simply said, I just don't think that I'm connecting very well with some of these doctors that I'm leading. And he goes, well, just keep trying. They don't like change, whatever. Just keep talking. Well, I did. To no avail. I was exhausted, quite honestly. One day we were at an event, and a woman at the event said to me, "Well, what do you do?" My daughter piped up and said, "Oh, she's the most expensive babysitter doctors can hire." Ah, oh, ouch. Ouch. But the truth of it is, and those little statements out of the mouth of babes come the truth. That was the truth. That's how I felt. And that's, I think, how I was perceived. So there had to be more to conversation than meets the eye. And so I went on a journey to study for 3 years the neuroscience of conversations, working with a team of neuroscientists to understand it. And then I took it to the next leap and said, so how can I teach people about this? This is so important and it's easy to learn. But most people don't know about it. And so that's where I began the journey of now teaching, speaking, telling people about the neuroscience of conversations so that they can understand what goes inside of our brain in conversations. And when you understand the basic principles, you can adapt and adjust. And every conversation will leave people feeling like you really listened to them, understood them, and heard them. And when you do that, whether it's your clients, whether it's your prospect, your team members, or as a leader, people want to work with you.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And what's interesting is that somebody said something once, and this is a saying that really sticks with me. And I think it can go into the communication where people won't remember what you say, but they remember how you made them feel. And when you really listen to somebody and they feel like you're listening and they feel good, right?
Right.
Feeling is what they remember. And the funny thing is that I actually took in college, I went to Bentley, which is a business school. I
Mhm.
took a communication class, and I actually learned a lot about communication and how a lot of times when somebody else is speaking and you're the recipient of the conversation and they say something that you don't like, you automatically in your brain stop listening to whatever else they're saying because you're thinking of your response.
Exactly, exactly. I want to tell you a little bit of science. I'm a nerd in science. I'm not going to overwhelm you and your audience, but what you said is that, and that's so true. People will never remember what you say, but they will always remember how you made them feel. Research has shown us that after 1 hour, people forget 90% of what is said, but they will remember it for a long, long time how you made them feel because that registers in the brain. The brain picks that up, stores it in its memory. And when you think about the person next time and wanting to have a conversation with them, what happens? Like a smile comes to your face. Like instead of saying, "Oh gosh, I'm not gonna call that person. Delete, delete, delete. Oh, I'll wait till the end of the day." Right? You have those people. I mean, we all do. Yeah. So instead of that, people feel like they want to connect with you.
Right. Exactly. Hey, real quick, if you're enjoying this podcast, make sure to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Real Estate Secrets Unlocked, and hit that notification bell so you never miss a new episode. And by the way, if you're a mortgage or real estate professional looking to level up your business, check out the Done by One CRM. It's at donebyone.ai. It has tons of tools that will help you automate your business, automate your systems, your lead generation, your lead follow up, social media, email marketing, and it will allow you to close deals faster. If you are ready to take your career to the next level, join my team. We are looking for real estate agents, mortgage professionals, and real estate agents that want to be mortgage professionals. We're all about support, growth, and crushing it together. The links are in the description. Check them out now and let's grow together. So, tell us a little bit of the neuroscience and what you've discovered. And then eventually let's go into some like tips for communication because believe it or not, I remember a lot from that class and I can tell a lot and that was a long time ago. This was not like 5 years ago here. But I don't know why that class stuck with me and really has helped me, realize, especially when I'm talking to somebody and I know they're not listening to me. You can tell a lot of times.
Totally. Totally. So we'll start with this the basics. Every conversation has two effects. It's a predictable reaction. Either people open up and connect or they shut down and protect. There is no middle ground. And so what you say and how you lead conversations open people up, and when they're feeling open, what happens in the brain is that they're feeling safe, they're comfortable, you're interested, we're going back and forth in a dialogue like we are here. The brain opens up, floods it with cortisol, and the prefrontal cortex is in charge. And the prefrontal cortex, our smart executive brain, is the one where we think, problem solve, create solutions, connect, trust. But think of a very different conversation where the brain sensed like you weren't listening. You were off someplace else, or you were lecturing me, or you were telling me what to do, or it seemed unavailable and uninterested. The brain automatically picks up those signals, fires off the amygdala. We go into the amygdala hijack, which floods the brain with cortisol and other hormones, but mostly cortisol, which um, shuts down the prefrontal cortex. So that's why it's really important to understand you can't have both. You can't lead a conversation where people are wanting to be open when they are feeling defensive or threatened. And it's not that we threaten them, but they perceive something threatening.
Mhm.
And so when they do that, they do the first thing that our brain is wired to do, and that is to move into protection. And when we're in protection, we cannot connect. So our job, understanding is to simply say, so what can we do? Uh, what can we do and what can we learn from this so that we can say more of what opens up the brain for oxytocin, the social bonding chemical, unless that threatens people and backs them into a corner. So our job is what do we do to open up? Because when people are open, good things happen. Conversations feel good.
Mhm.
When they're not good, people shut down and they won't, you won't get anywhere with it.
Right.
In fact, they'll leave your office, they'll put down the phone and say, "Whew, hope I don't have to talk to her again."
Exactly. Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. So how can you lead into a conversation where you're opening up, like, getting that open, receptive conversation going? And I have an idea too, but I want to hear, yours. Mine's
Okay.
not scientific.
It probably is because I think people are doing a lot of things that they just don't know that there's science behind it with the MRIs and the research that's been going on. There's just fabulous things that are coming out. And some of it really, Danielle, feels like common sense. So it'll be really interesting. So the first thing I say is any conversation, you must prepare yourself. I call it the 1 minute drill. 1 minute. Take a deep breath, relax your nervous system. Think about the purpose of the conversation and what you want the outcome to be. Okay, we got that. Then switch your thinking to the other person. What may be going on in their world? What's going on in their life? What do you think why are they into this conversation with me? And the most critical piece is, how do I want them to feel after we've had this conversation?
Yes.
Because we've got to tap into how they're feeling, get the oxytocin going so that they can then logically and thoughtfully make decisions and work with us.
Right.
So now that we've done that, we've prepared ourselves, we walk in to meet the person. And this is what's so interesting is that in less than a second, the people have judged you. They read your energy, they read your nonverbals, and they decide if you're a friend or a foe. So let's be friendly. Let's give their brain signals that we're ready and available and willing to have this conversation. And it's things like your relaxed nonverbal, your relaxed body posture, arms back, shoulders back, relax, arms out in front, hands out in front of you, good eye contact. Don't stare them down. You're not creepy, but enough to notice the color of their eyes and a smile. Things that we can all do regularly
Right.
automatically triggers their brain to say, "Huh, this is going to be okay. I'm feeling a little safe here." The second thing we do is we open with an emotional connection. Danielle, stop the noise of this rapport building by the weather and the sports score and whatever. You can do that later, but your first words that come out of your mouth are like establishing an emotional connection that says you're available, and it's so simple. Like, "I'm happy to see you."
So what
Who's their name? "Danielle, I'm happy to see you. I'm glad that we can share this time together." And stop. Let it land. You may not see it, but you have just now triggered their brain in a good way. And then once we get going, we simply say, so what's most important? Putting them first, sharing the air, I call it, putting them first and getting their ideas and input. What would you like to talk about today? What's most important? Now, if it's just a quick phone call about do I do this or I do that, that's a whole nother story. But we're talking about having a conversation with a client or a prospect
Right.
or your staff. So what's on your mind? What would you like to accomplish today? Okay, got that. You jot it down in some thing. I had a couple ideas. Can I share those with you? This is what I would like to do too. So let's put our ideas together and create our roadmap agenda. And when we create that together, what I have effectively done is taken myself out of the power of the expert, level the playing field, and I've told you, shown you, and invited you into the conversation that we are partners in this. I have my thing that you need to know about in terms of what I need and want, but you have this wide world of expertise. And when we begin to put this together and co-create, we're partners in this. I can't do it without you. You can't do it without me because that's what builds trust.
Right.
So I'm interested to hear your idea.
That well, and it's funny because you actually said a lot of what I was thinking. So the big thing that, we learn, because real estate, mortgage, insurance, like any of that is sales, right? Even
Yeah.
even a doctor is pretty much sales. I mean, they have to be in sales or else they're not going to have any patients right?
Yeah, we're all in the business of convincing or sharing our ideas in hope that other people will adopt them, whether you're a realtor, a doctor, a lawyer, a mom, a teacher.
Yes. So MMFI is something that we would put in big letters, and that would mean make me feel important, me being the other person. MSFI, make me, the other person, feel important. And I love how you open up with, you kind of said some nonverbal clues or cues, which is big. And we would talk about like mirror and matching. These are a little bit higher. So we look at it like higher level sales skills. You look at it like neuroscience, common sense type of thing. But when we're kind of like taught this, right, it's like higher level sales skills. So a nonverbal cue would be if we're, let's just say on a listing presentation, because when you were just saying what you were saying, I was thinking of a listing presentation. And if you approach a listing presentation the way you approached the conversation, I think every real estate agent would win every single time, because you're sitting down and you're saying, what is important to you? What are you looking to accomplish, and writing them down and sit. And then me saying, okay, this is what I'm looking to accomplish. Establish a marketing plan, establish a timeline to get your home sold, establish a price that we both think, would cause the home to sell. And then go ahead and get that listing agreement signed so I can get to work for you or whatever. But anyways, starting the conversation, like you said, I would, if any real estate agent is listening to this, replay and go back to that, because that is the key in how you should start every listing presentation. And then the MMFI, make me feel important. The nonverbal cues. So if they're sitting relaxed in the chair, then maybe you're sitting relaxed in the chair. If they're, like this, then maybe you're kind of going like this, just mirroring and matching how they are to also establish trust. And I think one of the things is, a lot of times in sales, that conversation starts on the phone. And so a lot of what we're taught about how to build rapport and trust over the phone is to mirror and match their voice. So if you're talking, and I'm a fast talker and I'm from New England, so but if I'm talking to somebody from the South, I need to slow it down, right? And hear and match them on the phone to build that rapport and trust.
Yeah, and you can tell by the first 2 or 3 seconds of the phone call when you pick it up. "Hi, how are you? What's going on here?" Blah, blah, blah. Someone who's really high pressure and fast paced, you might even wanna slow it down just a little bit, and but yeah, that's incredibly important. Matching the pace is really important. If I'm kind of a thoughtful person and I'm a little slower and you're a rapid talker, we're not gonna connect. And so it's being so aware of your style and how you can adapt it to the people that are either on the phone or in person or on Zoom. It all can be done, and it has a marvelous effect because you've just touched their brain. You
Right.
just opened up their brain, and it feels so good, Danielle, and it feels so good because nobody does it.
Yeah.
And what's even more important is when we can do that, we move from what's called collaboration. Collaboration to me is I'll do this and you do that. Okay, good enough. I understand. And collaborative conversations are good until they're not, and where they fall apart is that many times people will just go along to get along because they don't want to say, I don't understand. I don't know what this means. Help me through it, because they don't want to look dumb and stupid in front of you. So they'll just go along and they go home, and then all of a sudden they go like, I don't even know what that conversation was about. So when we move into from collaboration to co-creation, it's an active role that we both play to share and discover, and then we can together make our plans. It seems so simple, doesn't it?
Right. Yes, it does. It does. So let's talk about, and this happens, to everybody. And I'm actually in Bob Proctor coaching. And one of the things that he mentions in the coaching on is listen to this, like if we're learning something over and over again. Because what happens is, and this happens in conversation as well, You're talking to somebody and they say something and you hear that, and then your brain is now over here thinking of dit, 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 but they're still talking, right? Then you come back to the conversation, you might have just missed 40 seconds of important information that you don't even realize you missed, and then you pick up with that conversation. And I feel like, unless you're in tune to what we're talking about, nobody even realizes that they're actually even doing that. And it's like the game telephone. How much communication they're actually, how much of the conversation they're actually missing. So, what are some what is your thoughts on that? Maybe some like little hacks on how to fix that. But what do you think about that?
You're absolutely right on again. And that what happens in I call it, we're all listening dropouts. Every single one of us, myself included. And it takes discipline and practice to stay in the conversation. But why are we listening dropouts? When I speak, I speak at about 100 words a minute, right? You're listening at 400, and then you're problem solving at 900 words a minute, the 149 rule. And so before I've even have finished what it is that I'd like to tell you, you've already solved the problem and you exactly know what to do. But the problem is you've dropped out of the conversation because you're listening to yourself rather than listening to me, and you don't even know what I said. And so when you come back and ask a question or a comment, it's going to be off base. I guarantee it's like telephone. It's going to be guaranteed. And the person sitting across me is going to simply say, "What?" They're not going to say what. They're just going to nod their head and go like, "Yep, this is what I thought. Just another person out to make a sale. They're not listening to me." So we need to really focus on listening. And the first thing is to take the number one step, and that's to prepare yourself for the conversation. What is the conversation about, and how are we going to navigate and maneuver this, and then what's important to them, and constantly being reminded that this is a conversation, not a monologue for you to get on your pulpit and start preaching, but a dialogue to really listen. And so the thing is, Danielle, when we tell our brain to do something, like right before we do it, it'll do it. So, like, think about taking a test. If you're all nervous and anxious before you take a test, you're going to be nervous and anxious taking a test. But if you say to your brain, you say to yourself, calm down, breathe, right? We got to breathe. This is going to be okay. I can respond to anything, that's going to come up because I'm going to learn from them. Many times we have the attitude that we know it all versus the attitude that we're going to learn from them. And then we can settle down. And if we find ourselves into this place that we're doing all the talking and doing the lecturing and fixing the problem automatically, we need to stop. This is really vulnerable. Stop and say to the client, "You didn't come here to listen to me preach to you. What was on your mind?" Or something, sometimes I use humor. I said, "You just got me going again. I'm so passionate about this topic that I want to tell you everything." That's not what you came here for. You came here to tell me about what you need.
Right.
So let's back up and start again.
Well, and I think a lot of times and when I teach classes to realtors, and I tell that what happens a lot is they get nervous. And when they get nervous, all they do is blah 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 about themselves or about this or about that, and no one cares, right? Nobody cares. So I tell that they have to use question-based selling, right? And really go down through a script in the beginning until they can make their own to really get in the habit of asking questions, because selling is not telling, right? Because then they're just going to shut that client is going to block you out, think about something else, can't wait for you to leave, and you just lost the sale.
Absolutely. That's absolutely true. And the biggest piece is sometimes people get nervous. And so how do we calm our nerves? Doing exactly what you're teaching. And that is, I'd add one step to it. First, it'll just prepare yourself before your conversation, the 1 minute drill. Breathe and think about them. And number two is in write out. Sometimes it's even helpful to write out the conversation. Here's how I'm going to open.
Right.
And you open with an emotional level the playing field, ask what they'd like to accomplish, and then a couple, two or three questions that are open-ended questions. And here's the trick. It's not a trick. It's science. Questions that you don't have the answer for. So many times we ask questions and we're just repeating what it is that they've said or that's already been talked about. What I mean by questions that you have no answer for is like, well, what was the impact of that? What do you think could happen? What did happen? They're telling you about a situation or describing a situation. You want to take them a little deeper. And you can easily do that um, without them getting defensive when it's all relative to what they just said.
Exactly.
And many times people say, "Oh, here are my 20 questions I'm gonna ask them, boom, boom, boom." It's like, "Oh my gosh, no." Open the conversation, have a couple 2 or 3 questions that really lets them describe the situation, what it is that they're looking for, because that's your key to how you can help them.
Ve Exactly. Well, and 2 things that I wanna point out. One of the things that you said is open-ended questions, and I wanna mention open-ended questions because it is so important, not just in communicating verbally, right? But I even do it in an email. If you want a response from somebody that's not a yes or no, you have to ask the question that they have to give you an answer, right? So if I'm writing an email to somebody and I want them to respond to me, I will sometimes I even like correct myself before I send it. Because if I ask the question and then I say and I follow up with that question, just let me know. Okay, well, they don't have to let me know. If I turn it around and say, just let me know what time do you want to meet tomorrow? You know what I mean? Instead, then they have to respond. But if I say, what time do you want to meet tomorrow? Just let me know. Their brain might not even be thinking I need to respond to them.
No, you're like, "Great."
Yeah.
Yeah.
So those open-ended questions are extremely important, even in email. And then the second thing is that when you're dealing with a seller or a buyer, right? The number one thing people don't want to do a lot of times is make a decision, especially if it's a hard decision because they don't want to make the wrong decision. And you're there to help guide them. So when you ask these questions about where they're moving, why they're moving, what they want, right? And they're explaining all of that to you. When it gets hard, so for example, they're moving to Boston because they wanna get closer to their grandkids and they wanna be there by the summer because we're in our high selling season of Florida. Let's just use that for an example, right? Now they're listed at $500,000 and you get an offer of 470, right? 3 months after your initial appointment. Um, you now then use their motivation back. You did say, we haven't received any other offers, and you did say you wanted to be in Boston by June to be able to watch your grandkids this summer since your daughter has to work and they don't have money for daycare or whatever it is.
Yeah. Yeah. You've just done what I call if you really have listened and remembered what was important to them because you asked it and they told you. It's so amazing when we ask people these questions, they'll tell us everything we need to know. And it's not this interrogation of 20 questions. They will tell you, paint me a picture of, what will it be like for you to move to Boston? What does that mean to you? What will that look like? What will that give you? All those kinds of questions. And people just love to talk about themselves, just like we like to talk about ourselves because we get a dopamine hit. So do your clients or
Yep.
the people you're talking to. They love to talk about themselves. And if you're listening and really asking some questions to help them further express, you will get everything that you need to know. So when the time comes 2 or 3 months down the road, you can connect back to what it is that they originally said. Well, Mr. and Mrs. Client, the offer came in a little bit lower than what it is that you anticipated, but I want to remind you that the real vision that you have or the real goal that you really wanted was to, and then you repeat their words. And that triggers your brain again. Oh, yeah, like, right. Oh, I get it now. I get it.
You
And then,
do that, don't you?
or yeah, so where do you want to go from here? I wouldn't even do that. Well, it's personal preference. I would even simply say, so where do you want to go from here?
Right.
Now they're remembering you've triggered the good thoughts, the positive thoughts about what it is they want, why they want it, what's it going to be like when they get there. And so now they can say, okay, I've got that as my sort of my goal. So how am I going to make the decision? What do I want to do with this?
Right. And taking them from that thinking to that feeling, right? Like really having them feel how it's gonna be instead of
Yes.
people, thinking, or
Actually, you're taking them I'm sorry for interrupting. Actually, you're doing it reverse. You're taking them from what it feels like, which is a good feeling and opens up the brain so that they can then think and problem solve and use you to work through what they're thinking.
right,
I think the biggest role we can play with our clients is being a thinking partner. I'm not going to tell you what to do, but I am going to help you think through. I am going to help you look at the options. Here's an option that's on the table. Now remember, this was important to you because X, Y, and Z. Where would you like to go with this?
right.
Isn't that just so I don't even know the word to use, Danielle. It's just so right.
Well, and it's to be honest with you, that is what separates the majority of real estate agents from the top producers, because they understand this and they understand how important it is and they understand how to study this to really, get good at this. Now let's talk about versatile selling. And what I mean by that is, if you look at a driver personality or an expressive personality or an analytical or drivers are very quick, short, to the point, right? And so what I tell people, and I'm an expressive, so I, could go on and on. Me and an expressive, we would have this squirrel conversation that goes like this, and then we're like, wait, what were we talking about? How did I get here? Why am I talking about this now? It's like one of those. We need like a mediator to just sit there and be like, wait, come back to the conversation here.
And Danielle, come on back.
Right? But let's just say, a driver. So I teach people to really understand who their client is, because if you're dealing with a driver, you want to adapt to how they are, right? You don't want to go on these long-winded, you lost them. Or if you're an analytical, right? They want to see stats and graphs and numbers and analyze. So you wanna become more versatile like them. In the communication world, do you have any thoughts on that?
They're gonna tell you in the first so if you open up a conversation like I suggested, like, you know, and first question is, "So what is it that you'd like to talk about today?" A driver is gonna tell you, "I wanna do this, and I wanna do that, and nothing more." Uh, one of my clients did that with, a couple that are drivers, and he did the nice introduction, and they came in, and he said, "So what's going on in your" before we get going, like, "What's been going on in your world?" And these were longstanding clients, right? They looked at him, they said, "I don't want any small talk. Let's get to the business." And they opened it up and said, "This is what we want to talk about." And so what did he do? He followed their lead.
Exactly.
And you need the data, so you want data. How much data? What data do you want? I mean, you kind of have to engage and simply say, I understand that this is, you're saying to yourself, I understand this is how this person is. They're a driver, they're an analyzer, they want to look at data. So what is it, the data? What data do you need to present? You go with that because we always say, well, just go with what's important to your client. Well, that's how you do it. And if they're saying, nah, I don't want anything about this, I don't want any of this social chit chat, this waste my time, you can say, so let's start with what's on your list. Let's start with where you are at. Let's start with what your questions are and what you want to know. And it may be a short and sweet conversation, but along the way, I do know that there is always a time to insert a little bit of, and so what else is going on? Is there anything else what else do I need to know?
Right.
And they may say nothing, or they may say, oh, well, and open up a bit. But what you're doing, Danielle, is you're planting seeds.
Yes. Yeah, and it's funny that you said that because I was thinking, me myself, I'm not into that small chit chat in the beginning. And when I do see that, especially in a sales situation, I immediately think, what are they trying to sell me? Like, when that's just my brain, I don't know why, but if they're going into this all little chit chat and, like, let's say you go to look at a car, right? And, like, I just wanna know the price of the car, but they bring you in and they gotta talk to you about this and there's chit chat, and I'm just like, "Oh my gosh, I just wanna I want the facts. I don't wanna be sitting here right now." So, really understanding, but then in my opinion, it's funny, and I always tell this to the real estate agents I teach, is the amiables are the biggest liars. So not liars, but they tell you what you want to hear because they don't want to hurt your feelings, but they're not telling you how they really feel. And they're the first to ghost you.
Mhm. Mhm. Yeah, they won't speak up. They won't speak up. And many times, that is well, that certainly is their nature, but there's also this power over, "You're smarter than I am about this, and so I'm not gonna challenge you because you're the expert, and I'm not gonna wanna look dumb, and when I leave the office, no, I'm not gonna do what you tell me to do, but I'm not gonna tell you that."
Right.
Yeah, they're really hard. And the whole other thing is chit chat. I don't like chit chat. Most people don't like chit chat. And I think that many people's response to this, like little chit chat, is like, oh my God, when are we gonna get over this? When is this gonna stop? And instead, don't do it. Just don't do it. Just simply say, um, what's on your mind today? What would you like to cover? Anything else? Okay, great, great. You
Exactly.
still open the doors with your presence and the words that you use to let them know you're there, you're interested, and you're not selling. You're there to help them. And I think that's the biggest thing that people have to get over, and that this really is very effective to get the relationship. And once you get the relationship, then you can do all sorts of things together. It's not about you doing to me or me doing to you. It's about together. And I will guarantee you that when there's rough waters, and we know that there will be, this relationship that you've built that's trust-based will weather the test of time.
Right.
Because you can honestly simply say, "We ran into a snag," or your, uh, client or your SAP person can say, "I don't know how to do this," or I didn't quite get it, and can you help me more?"
Right.
Yeah.
So, two questions. NLP, neurolinguistic programming. How does that relate to what you do? And do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I don't know that I don't do MLP. I've heard about it and I've read about it, and it is a way of expressing. My work goes back even before what it is that you say and what you do to understand the impact the brain has on how we lead conversations and how we respond to conversations. And once we understand that, there's all sorts of tools that we can use to help ourselves to express as well as to allow other people to express.
Right. And I see a lot of times, especially the newer agents or newer salespeople, right? They're nervous and they might not feel that they have all of the knowledge that they need. And one of the things that they have a hard time doing, which can be changed with communication, is getting, let's just say, a seller that is stuck on a price, right? Getting them to understand where the property might need to be priced in order to get it sold. How can they, if you are at odds with somebody, right? You're not understanding each other. And let's just say this went on for a month. How do you turn that around?
Um, I would acknowledge that there's a difference. We're in a situation, there's a conflict. So I would acknowledge that this is your perspective and this is my perspective. And can we come to the middle to understand? Here you're the seller. This is what we've tried. These are the results we got. What do you think? Has that worked? Not so much. That tells us we need to go back to the drawing board. Let's look at a couple other options and begin problem solving together rather than just simply say, well, this doesn't work and you need to lower your price. Well, lowering your price may be one option, but there might be a couple other things, or there may be something that the client didn't think about. So we want to, again, bring them in the conversation. Yeah, it's difficult. And to be on, the thing is, trust is built when we are honest and use candor, and we can get through what it is that we disagree on. Now, the end result is that we may end up to disagree about what we disagree, and so be it. That's okay. That's okay. It's not about winning the conversation or winning the battle. It's about pulling the other person in and simply say, this is what we tried. Results. Tried this. I'm scratching my head. Client, could there be some other options that we haven't thought about? What do you think?
Right.
And if they're stuck and say, well, this is it, and this is the price, and that's about all, I'm not budging, so be it. Then what? The consequence of that, I may point out for you, it may be that your property may be on the market for a long time,
Right.
and this is why. I think when we use the because word, this is what I'm recommending because, and show them, it really perks people up. Like, oh, it's not just that you want to make more money or less money. It's not about you and the commission. It's about because this is a situation. Therefore,
Right. Well, and I always tell them, like the commission is paid on the actual final purchase price. So more money we sell your home for, the more we all win, right? So by lowering the price, that doesn't do I know it's not what you want and it's not what I want either, but the market is telling us that this is where we need to be priced. And then it's actually up to the agent to decide if they want to take that listing or not, because a lot of agents, I mean, it is if you're a listing agent, which was predominantly what I did, towards the end, not in the beginning, y-
mhm.
you're spending a lot of upfront money and you're spending a lot of time. And if you cannot get the property sold, well, then what is the point? What's the
Yeah, it's
right?
a lot of wasted effort and money and time. Yeah.
Exactly. Money, effort, and time. And so it's really up to them. And I have a newer agent that came to me a couple of weeks ago and he got a listing and the seller wanted it priced here and he felt like it should be priced here. And in my opinion, I wouldn't have taken that listing. So he's been trying to get the price reductions and the listing expired. And now the other agent that had it before came in, dropped it 40 grand, right? So his communication skills were not allowing him and the seller to see eye to eye. And then, the new agent came in, and that happens a lot with the expired listing. And I think that's in the beginning why we said, why I said communication is the number one reason why most sellers feel that their property didn't sell was lack of communication with the previous agent.
Yeah. Yeah. The agent has so much knowledge and information and technical that the parts that the client needs to hear are never communicated. You do so much work behind the scenes, literally, to help me to sell this property, but I don't know that. And I'm going to point out another thing that I thought about when you were speaking. You also have the right to say no to a client. I mean, that whole idea of best fit, if you are looking at this and simply saying, this is really what I recommend, and here's the market, here's my research, and this is what I'm recommending because this is what the market is telling us, and someone comes in, way, way above that and simply said, well, this is all I'm going to settle for. You have the right to simply say, then I don't think this is a fit.
Exactly. Exactly. And I've done that many times. Now, another thing that they can do is if they're in that situation and they have the listing, they're get an offer, they're not seeing eye to eye, is you can always bring in another agent and give that agent a piece of the commission. We call them the closer, but there's some agents that that's what they do. They're good at communicating, right? They're good at getting people to understand. And so sometimes you have to take yourself out of that equation and bring somebody else in, give up a little bit of a little piece of the pie to get everybody to where they need to be, which is a sold property. Um, Everything we talked about is so important when it comes to any type of sales, not just, real estate or mortgage or whatever. If you are in that type of business and you're the forefront of the business, meaning you're the face, you have to understand communication. That communication is the sale, right? That's the
Communication is the sale. Yes. And you need to, and I think understanding what really happens when in people's brains will help you to gauge and think about how and be more thoughtful and more intentional, more purposeful about how it is that you communicate with people and what it is that you want to communicate. And using all of your senses, Danielle, this is so important. We have for free use our eyes and our ears and our heart. Use them if you're seeing some nonverbal cues. They're giving you a clue. What does that mean? Oh, I don't know, but let me go down that road. So you using all of what you have will help you
Yes. Now, and if you don't have any, that's fine. But before we hop off here, do you have any nonverbal cues that are a dead giveaway of somebody not listening or somebody not understanding or, something like that?
Couple of them. First nonverbal cue is that literally you will see that their body turns away. It may be slight, but their body begins turning away because what are they thinking? Like, how am I going to get out of this conversation? Fight or flight, right? You will see them, nervous little habits. You will see them touching their hair or their eyes, or you will see them straightening up their collar or their suit coat or whatever. You will see that the eye contact has changed. So instead of looking at you, I start looking away and I start looking down. Um, and you can feel the energy shift. You can almost see the body kind of go inward because they're protecting. They're protecting.
Yes. I love that.
You'll hear it in their tone. You'll also hear it in their tone of voice when they, if you give them a chance to speak.
Right.
You'll also hear it in their tone of voice. It's much more tenuous and like, oh yeah, I get it, or yeah, I think I can do that. And then you'll see this non-genuine smile. Sure, sure, I will. Yeah, I got that, Danielle. Yeah, yeah, no problem.
So, and I think one of the things you should do when you start to see that is understand what you're seeing and then bring it back around to getting them back involved.
Yeah. Then how would you do that?
Right. So you're seeing them not really paying attention and then, taking a step back and saying, I understand everything I'm going over is a lot. So I just want to make sure that we're on the same page and that you're understanding what I'm saying. When I talked to you about the marketing, for example, was there anything in my marketing plan that, you thought should have been there that wasn't there to get your home sold?
And I would just tweak that a little bit. What did you see? Not is there anything? That's a yes or no. What did you see that I might have missed? You see, not that you missed anything, but it's being really vulnerable and it's opening, it's inviting them in.
Right.
I would, I might even be so bold in the conversation to simply say, gosh, I've just been going on and on about all these details. I think I've lost you. There's so much, right? So let's back up and start with, let's look at the marketing plan first. What do you see that I don't see?
Right.
Is there what would you add or take out, or what are your thoughts? You invite them back in
Yes.
and then slow down. You really have to think about in the purpose of the meeting, how much of this do you need to share? And given what you need to share, can you do a high level overview?
Right. Well, so I keep saying in 2 things, like, thinking, "Okay, this is it," but then my brain is like, "Okay, I have, like, 2 more things." So one thing I wanna point out here, and we're pretty much, in my mind, talking about listing presentations, is you go into a listing presentation and you have 2 people, right? So now you're dealing with 2. I suggest you focus on the decision maker, not that the other one is not important, right? But you want to make sure you're getting that buy in from the decision maker. And sometimes who you think the decision maker is not the actual decision maker.
That's the tricky thing to figure out who really is the decision maker. Here's a couple and he's doing all the talking, but who's really making the decision? I would bet Danielle that she has a lot to do about the decision.
Exactly.
And so certainly you want to focus on that, but then you always want to loop her back, loop the other person back in. So we've been talking, about this. What are your thoughts? Bring her back in. Bring her. I shouldn't say that's really. Bring the other person back in. What do you think? We've talked a lot about this, and we've covered this. What do you think?
Right. And I always tell my people, I tell my people, when you're on a listing presentation, if you leave the house without a signed listing agreement, a lot of times that you're 50% chance you're going to get that. So one of the things that you can do is say to them, I know we've covered a lot of information and I want to give you two the opportunity to talk. So that way, a lot of times when I lead, you might have some questions that I didn't answer. So, what I'm going to do is step outside, make a few phone calls, give you about 5 minutes for the both of you to talk. and then I'll come back in and we can go over and just answer any additional questions that you have just to make sure I've covered everything.
Yeah. And you're giving them permission to have this private conversation.
Yes.
That's beautiful.
Yeah. Yep. Well, thank you so much for
Oh, Danielle, it's been my pleasure to talk with you about talking to people and conversations. Thank you. It's been my pleasure.
yes, conversations that matter and that build trust. And I highly, highly, highly recommend, like I said, I took this course in college and I feel like every business school should have, well, a lot of others as well, but every business school needs to have a class on communication.
Oh,
It is so important. And selling is not telling, and understanding all of this is how you are going to close more deals and have more raving fans and more happy clients. And we're talking about this in the business sense, but also having more better personal relationships, whether it's with your kids, your spouse, your mom, your dad, whoever. So really great.
yeah. So tonight when you go home after work, instead of, opening the door and someone saying, "Oh my gosh, I'm so tired. I had an awful day at work." Take a few minutes, free group, walk in the house and simply say to your partner or your kids, like, "What was good in your day?" You will be amazed at the kinds of conversations you're going to start stirring up because people love to talk about themselves. We never give them an opening by which they can do that. And so, whether it's in sales or business or personal life, it's all the same. People want to be included, people want to be invited in to the conversation. And now you've got the keys and the tools to do that.
Absolutely. I'm doing that tonight with my kids.
Try it. I could, please do. And let me know. I have to.
I will. Well, thank you so much. You can follow Mary on LinkedIn. And I'm assuming you have your website, maryschmid.com.
Right. And then for your listeners, there's a special offer, a special page for them to go to, which is maryschmid.com/RESU for Real Estate Secrets Unlocked /period.
I love that. So we will include that actually in like in the comments and stuff so that they can go there. But that
Yeah, it's a special page, but really highlighting and sort of reintroducing exactly what we talked about. Because as you know, people will remember 90% of what we've talked about after they've listened. And this is a resource should they want it.
yes, I love it. Go there, check that out. Follow Mary, and Mary, thank you. It was a pleasure.
My pleasure. Thank you, Danielle.
Well, that's a wrap. I hope you enjoyed today's episode of Real Estate Secrets Unlocked. Don't forget to subscribe to our show on your favorite platform, and we would love your feedback. Check us out on social and let me know what topics you want more of. Don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel and our show. I'm your host, Danielle Damianov, and until next time, stay motivated, stay excited, and keep growing in this crazy world of real estate. Thanks for listening to Real Estate Secrets Unlocked.